The head of Backpage is back in California to face charges after being arrested here in Houston. Both California and Texas prosecutors allege the majority of the ads on Backpage are for adult services and that the company is profiting from the sex trafficking of adults and children. Backpage has denied any wrongdoing and is accusing the California prosecution as being politically motivated. The Attorney General in that state is running for the U.S. Senate. First Amendment advocates see the ads as an issue of free speech. Is the arrest a violation of the First Amendment and possibly an election year stunt? That's our topic this half hour. And as always, we like to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also send me a tweet at Sally Mack, Fox 26. Joining us live in the newsroom is our panel led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tridico. We have Democratic media consultant Mustafa Tamiz and Republican strategist and public policy analyst Jackie Bally. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So is this a First Amendment issue?
Well, first we have to acknowledge that the best university in Texas won again last night in our undefeated season. That's your in-depth sports report.
Glad we had some good football news.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, Nate Griffin. All right, so let's get on to this. This case will live or die on the First Amendment, and that's the defense of this case will be: I merely host a web page, and I don't control the content. I don't tell people what they can say on the content, and I don't have specific knowledge that people are using my webpage as a platform for human trafficking. That's how they will do it. The police use this webpage, oddly enough, for their own divide. They go on and pose as children looking for sex to arrest predators all the time, Jackie Bally. And so this has been brewing for a long time. These pages come up. Backpage has been around a long time. And the police don't like these pages because they are used now as the new place to go and find this type of stuff.
Right, and we do know that there are several pages like this. In this particular instance, there is documentation that the owners did admit that they were aware that prostitution was existing on their pages. They said they tried to prohibit it, they tried to curve it down. So there is documentation that they did admit that they knew there was illicit activity going on their page. With that said, it's going to be very difficult to actually prosecute them for this, because the same way I cannot manage what's being posted on my Facebook page or any social media page that people have access to, it's going to be very difficult to say, even though they made some actions to try to prohibit the activity, to say that they actually willingly let it happen.
Yeah, being aware of it is not the same thing, Mustafa, as participating in it and sponsoring it. Right. And that's the First Amendment challenge here.
And there's I think lawyers will argue it on both sides, and that's a First Amendment debate that'll continue. There's a bigger issue in this that I think gets ignored a lot. The internet has brought us a number of great and wonderful things, but there's an explosion of addiction, sexual addiction, that is become a giant problem for our country. And you see this exploding in pornography. You see it exploding in sex trafficking. And so whether it's the Backpages or 59 and Bissonnette, which is a hub, not just in Houston, but nationally. And so there's a small nonprofit group called Landing there, and they're bringing women off the street to try to support them and help them. And so while we're looking at this big national debate, I think we all have to figure out a way to start supporting these nonprofits to help people.
Let's go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, let's check in on Twitter right now. We'll show you a couple tweets that are out there concerning this topic. At Sky to Earth says, "Dear reporters, there is very little trafficking on Backpage. Most are consensual adults posting their own ads." So these are some tweets that are in support of what Backpage is doing. This doctor says, when a multi-year and multi-agency investigation yields no traffickers, you scapegoat the Backpage CEO to justify the millions you wasted. So what about those points there?
Well, look, to suggest that because there are people on there that are looking for consensual sex, fine. and there's nothing illegal about that. But to say that there's not prostitution going on Backpage would be to ignore the thousands and thousands of ads that are on there that are completely promoting just that. Yeah. And so, and I know from what I do for a living that people are on there trolling for children. I represent people who get arrested trolling for children on that page.
Yeah, Houston is the #1 city for human and sexual trafficking, illicit activities like this of underage children. And so that's why you see a lot of officers, Mustafa mentioned nonprofits, that are being very proactive in trying to curb this kind of activity. So unfortunately, the comments that we saw by a couple of our viewers is actually why you have pages like Backpages, because they're saying there's nothing wrong, even though it is clear the owners have said they understand that there's been illicit activity going on, and there's been evidence of illicit activity.
You know, Mustafa, sometimes it's hard to defend the First Amendment. We have to, freedom is hard to defend. We have to support the KKK walking down the street yelling epitaphs. We have to defend people that want to say this kind of stuff on the internet. But that's what freedom's about.
And that's the balance that we've got to strike on this. The other side to it is that trafficking is growing at an alarming rate, and we've got to find a way to begin to curb this and manage this. And I think we have to begin to deal with sexual addiction in a serious way, because I think we talk about trafficking a lot, but we don't talk about the rise of addiction. And a great part of it is the explosion on the internet and the ease and the access of things because of the internet. So a much broader conversation needs to happen that's not going on because the internet makes everything so private.
All right, we'll leave it right there. We'll be back in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, talk about Donald Trump's nuclear bomb.
All right, stay tuned for that. Good points made in that discussion. We're going to